Good afternoon. It is the... What is that in the corner there, Jacob?
In what?
What's that in the corner of the screen?
Oh, it's our new ad pop-up.
Ah, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. There you go. It's controversial. You've changed this. They've changed the thing. I didn't even notice. Here we are. It's St. Patrick's Day. As you can see by the array of shirts behind us. It is St. Patrick's Day, so if you celebrate that, cool. If you don't, well, that's on you, isn't it? Jacob, you have come up with the title of what kind of profile Everton should be looking for in terms of a centre forward. We will also come on to the Chelsea stuff in a bit, which is it's important, and I think like a lot of people are angry about it, and I can understand why a lot of people are angry about it. It very much does feel like a two-tier system. Yeah. But we'll come on to that in a bit. The centre forward situation, I mean, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and obviously Tierno Barry is in the news for very much the wrong reasons. Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts on like the general centre forward situation at the moment?
So, in relation to the title, I just think, obviously we're linked with all these different strikers, and I just don't know what difference it'll make, because we've for many seasons now we've all wanted these big strong strikers, and none of them have really worked. And I just
who give examples?
Calvert-Lewin.
See, I still think Calvert-Lewin worked though.
He was very good in what he did, but like we weren't like he's someone who's great in the air, and we weren't having these crosses. Thrown at him.
I appreciate that.
His hold-up was immense, and he wouldn't have anyone anywhere near him, and he'd still manage. He was very good at, and I wanted him to stay. But I just think we're looking at this certain specific profile of striker, and then we don't play anywhere near their strengths. So I just think, to keep it simply, bin all of it, get this small tech like a Gabriel Jesus or even Richarlison, or in relation with St. Patrick's Day, Troy Parrott,
yeah.
Just someone who plays the way we play.
See, I'd see where I disagree with you on that is, I don't know. I don't know how we play. That's my only thing on that is like, I don't know how we play. I think a centre forward actually dictates how you play quite a lot. I think if you have a really good centre forward, I think they dictate how you play. I think
sure.
I think if you have a Romelu Lukaku playing a front for you, there's no point saying that we're going to play a different style to what a player of that quality. It's actually one of the great sort of weird things about Manchester City is that they don't actually play to the style that suits Haaland. It's one of the real sort of enigmas of football, I think. I think that when Pep was at Barcelona and he got Zlatan and Ibrahimovic, they didn't play the way he wanted to play, and he soon found himself leaving the football club because none of it worked. It just didn't work. And Pep's brought in obviously the best centre forward in the world, you'd probably say.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't suit. He scored 3 goals since Christmas. He's an absolute machine. But I think he'd score more goals at like a Real Madrid or somewhere like that, who will look at it, who will build a team around the centre forward. I think this season Real Madrid are starting to like build around Mbappe. Whereas when they first got him, they didn't really do that. I think that's what you have to do. I think if you've got a lesser striker, I think obviously it's down to getting maybe then it's starting to work that playing into the team. But I really do believe, I think football has overcomplicated itself in terms of like, if you've got this amazing centre forward, you don't dictate to that centre forward how you're going to play. Personally, I don't believe that anyway. I believe you play to that fella's strengths. If you've got someone who's great in the air, you put crosses in, like you said before. If you've got someone who's a worker down the channels, you play it into the channels, and then you get them to hold it up, and then you bring in the midfield into play. You don't play football that doesn't suit the centre forward, the number one guy. Because let's remember as well, centre forwards are the number one people in a football club. They are the people who put the ball in the back of the net. You play to them. So,
but
I do. You know, if Everton go for say Troy Parrott, you mentioned there. I mean, and number one, I don't know whether he is ready to play in the Premier League.
That's another thing.
I just don't know. He's scoring goals, but it's in the Dutch league, isn't it? And Dutch league is very hit and miss when it comes to producing players. I just feel like you have to play to that player's strength, and that's the first port of call.
I mean, just a couple of things you said there. I completely agree with City don't play to Haaland's strengths, and Haaland does so well. He does as well as he has been because he's just that good of a player. But like if you watch him at Dortmund, he was running onto things. He had, Royce close to him. He had Jude, he had Sancho, all playing to him basically. But I just think the way Everton play, we're not doing our strikers any favours. I mean, I watched Barry. I can't say I watched Beto in Italy. I can't say, Cavalier came through pretty much Everton. But I watched Barry in Spain and at the under-21s, and either it's the scouting team who have just identified completely like the wrong player. Or it's David Moyes for, he has a player, they have identified the right player, but he just doesn't play to his. And you ask what kind of team we are, I would say we're like a team that we just play to the wingers. Like we play to the wingers, not to the striker, which is completely fine. But then when it does reach the striker, it's just, everyone's like lost. So it's a weird one, but all the names that Everton are linked with, Vlahovic, all these guys, they're just the same it's the same type of player.
I think Baz nailed it yesterday when he said we need like a centre forward who's actually can play football.
There you go.
Because I take on board the, like, when people talk about the XG of the centre forwards, and they're pretty much where they should be, not too far from where they should be in terms of XG. But I also think, though, and this is something that I think has been lost because we don't have many good centre forwards. Like, me and Baz grew up in the generation of unbelievable centre forwards. Like, everybody had a good centre forward, or you had a centre forward. Lots of clubs now don't even have proper centre forwards. It's been taken out of football, and we've spoke about this so many times, how football has to follow the market trend. If you've got, number 10s in Brazil were eliminated because European clubs wanted powerful number 6s. So football clubs in Brazil and places like that put money into, put their efforts into producing number 6, because if that's how you're going to raise £25 million a summer by selling someone to Europe, it's easier to turn someone into a number 6 than number 10. Number 10 is very, but it's been diluted, and centre forwards have been the same. Centre forwards have been diluted to be in other positions now, and we just don't have enough centre forwards to go around now. It is one of the big.
That's why it's the same merry-go-round. It's always the same.
And it's why people like the lad Palace bought from Wolves.
Van Larsen
cost 50 million.
Yeah,
because you look at him and go, right, he's young, He's got a good frame. He scored a few goals, and he'll pop up. And I think he's got maybe 3 or 4 for Palace since he's got there. There's just not enough to go round anymore. So, but for me, I think one thing we massively overlook is, and this is what really annoys me about when we talk about centre forwards, is that a centre forward has got to do the basics, which is, when the ball goes into them, it sticks, and they either keep it and give it back to someone, or turn the player who's marking them. And I see neither of our centre forwards capable of doing that. And I think that's where when people talk about them and defend them in terms of like, what chances did we make for them? What chances do they make for themselves? You know, that's another thing, isn't it? It's like, what kind of chances did those 2 centre forwards create for themselves? And that's a big problem. If Beto and Barry are giving the ball away 50% of the time, then what is the point of all that good build-up play that has got you to that place? A centre forward, first of all, has to be the platform for your team to build up. You get up the pitch, you're driving the opposition backwards. If you're going to go to the furthest point forward, which is always going to be your centre forward, he has to be the buffer to take your team up, hold on to it, get it wide, drop it into the number 10, the number 8, and then go again. And whether that's through good short passing or just a long ball, that has to work. And that's where the frustration is, certainly with me, when I watch Barry and I watch Beto and I watch games like Saturday. Don't get me wrong, when we played Manchester United early on the season and we only had 10 men, Barry was really good that night at winning so many aerial balls, but what he was really good at was not just winning the aerial balls, because anyone can win an aerial ball. You could stick me up front and I could win loads of headers, but if those headers aren't going to anyone,
then it's pointless.
Then it's pointless, isn't it? And that's what happened with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Whereas he'd win a lot of headers, but there's no one around him because we weren't supporting him. And so he got you know, a lot of plaudits that night for the work he did. But I just think recently with Barry, and this is what my worry is with Barry, is that you watch a player improve, and recently he just seems to have plateaued. So he hasn't scored. He hasn't scored loads anyway, but he hasn't scored many goals. But how has he contributed to the team? Okay, he got the winning goal at Newcastle, that's brilliant. But how has he contributed to the overall team, and how has he developed as a team player? Of course, when we came in, he was very, very raw, and we've seen that. So he has developed. There's no question that he's developed as a footballer. And I understand this, and he's got this shoulder problem, and I understand that developing a player during the season is very difficult physically, and players do need a pre-season, and I think that's where we're suffering from the likes of Jared Brantwaite, who clearly needs a pre-season, hasn't had a proper pre-season in 2 years. And he hasn't had that day one pre-season. And it is a problem. So it's them doing stuff for themselves that has to be the next thing for them, I think.
Yeah. I completely get what you're saying with their hold up, and I think Everton need a striker. Let me go really simple. Everton need a striker in the Harry Kane profile, not the Haaland profile. Harry Kane can drop deep, he can get the ball, and he can play a diagonal to the, there's no point in having this pillar up top, statue up top, because it's not worked and it's not working. But my point is, we play that way, and Barry's not that kind of player. I mean, Beto's good at one thing. Being very...
You'll have to tell me what that one thing is.
Running onto through balls, and then that all right. You may disagree, but I think that's the only time when so he's playing on the shoulder. He's get through balls, and he'll try push off the defender. But we play the complete opposite way. We play to his feet or aerial balls into him, and it's just, I don't think it makes any sense. And that's why, and I see the names Everton are linked with, and I just don't think that makes sense either.
Yeah.
And I think it should just be a completely different profile, or we start playing to the players we have.
Yeah, I know. I take your point. What I find fascinating about Beto is like what you've just mentioned there, is that we judge him on this hold up play. Sorry, running onto the ball.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen.
No, because we don't play that way.
No, but why? So the question is, why don't we play that way? So if he's only good at one thing, why don't we play that way? What does that say about the trust that the manager has in him as a player? Or is that just not capable? Is it how, does that mean that you have to play a very particular way to draw teams on and then spring them so they leave enough space around the back so that Beto can run around the back? I think that's a very one-off skill set that won't happen that many times in a game.
Match. Yeah.
And I think that for me means that, and again, we mentioned it yesterday after the Brentford owner or whoever it was, technical director, mentioned it, of like the 3 1-on-1s. In that night, that's where it sort of all went wrong for Beto, in that night against Brentford when he missed the 3-on-1s. That's when his goal scoring run sort of ended that night. And he never really picked it up till he got a couple of goals towards the end of the season. So even when he did get 1-on-1s, he, it's great that he got them, but he missed them. So he's still not the most competent striker even if he gets them. And I just think if you're playing in the Premier League, you've got to have far more about your general game than just putting the ball or just getting in those opportunities that are very fleeting.
I completely get that. I completely get that, and I think from what you've kind of said makes me think Everton play to the strengths of other players because the strikers aren't good enough. And I think Beto's someone who I think Everton will shake his hand in the summer and he'll be moved on. But Barry, there's something there, and James laughs at me because I'll stick up for Barry, but I genuinely, I've seen him play for Villarreal, who I think finished 4th in a Champions League spot, and he played up top for them, and he was really good. And France under 21s, he was there at the under 21s Euros and all of that, and now he looks like he's gone back. He looked like he was ready for a big move, and then Everton got him, and it looks like he's on par with Dibbling and Asnu as this development player, which I just think that's because Everton don't play the way they should play for a player like him. So then I just think get someone else, a completely different profile.
Do you think just on an overarching thing that you just mentioned there? Do you think that we expect far too much? I've just seen a comment there about Dibbling in the comments there on YouTube, and it just makes me laugh when people like go overboard about young young players. Do you think that we have to give these players, young players, a year's grace? Like just at least a year, like at least a season's grace to bed in and
1,000,000%.
Just get them, have no pressure on them. I mean, we're all guilty of it. I mean, these players cost a lot of money, and Everton lost a lot of players in the summer, and there was that clamour of, well, we have to bring players in, and Moyes did that himself. And I do think Moyes at times is the biggest problem with this, is that he sets the expectations so high, or tries to create expectations that are high, so that when we buy players, there's expectation on the players, not just everybody else. Where maybe if we took a step back and went, well, Moyes is good at making, as whatever you think about David Moyes, he's took this team on and he's improved it massively.
Yeah.
To the point where, you know, sitting there last night looking at going, oh, let's get, and Wolves end up getting a point, and it's brilliant for us. Whereas it wasn't that long ago that we'd be like going, oh, Brentford, oh, what have you done? Do you know what I mean? So we've moved forward to a point where we are still in the European hunt. Brentford are only 2 points ahead of us. Newcastle are a point behind us. We're still in there. We've got tough games, but we're still in there. So the expectations have changed from that point of view. So you can only look at Moyes and say he's done a really, really good job.
Yeah.
We can break it down, when we break it down to individual games like we did yesterday on the final word, and we saw what the subs, there's obviously still a lot that needs to be done. But do you think that maybe in the cold, hard light of day, when we're sitting here maybe in 6 months' time, we'll be looking, hopefully, at Asnu, Diblin, Barry, and going, you know what? They benefited so much from just being here a year with the pressure on other players. And don't get me wrong, players need to play. But I also think that when players play, certainly at Everton, there's so much expectation on them straight away, especially with the price tag, and especially with moving to a new stadium, the new owners as well coming in. There being a sense of we can't get this, because last season the whole thing about last season was don't get relegated. Get to the new, see at the end, see out Goodison Park in a way that is fitting, and then moving, make sure, you know, we're in the Premier League for the new season. And then this season, I think it was, and I think this is where we are well ahead of it, was have a decent season, bed into the new ground.
Yeah.
And just take a step away so we're not looking over our shoulder. So everything at the moment is trending that way.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking at Europe. We know we're in the 43 points. Moyes wants us to get to 50 plus. But if we can get those young players bedded into the club as well, so that actually at the end of the season, it's not this thing of we need to get rid of him, we need to get rid of him, we need to get rid of him. It's actually David Moyes looks around and goes, do you know what? I've got Harrison Armstrong, Tim Burnham. I've got Tyler Diblin. I've got Tierno Barry. I've got Adam Asnu.
Yeah.
By a good young right back. Have the likes of Brantwaite, maybe another young centre back as well. And go, actually, I've got a really good young set of young players that know what it's all about now. And when it comes to next summer, they all start pre-season on day one. They know what's expected of them. And we don't fall into this trap as a football club and as a fan base. And that's the most important one, the fan base. Of going, Tyler Diblin's crap, get rid of him now. It's like, well, what was the point of having him for a year where you've bedded them into the football club? Like, we've done this before. We've done this with Ademola Lookman. We've done this with Moise Keane. We've done this with other players where we've had them at the club. They've been mismanaged. Now, I'm not saying these players are being mismanaged, by the way. We've mismanaged them, and of course they're becoming unhappy, and the club has got no direction and just sees them then as like, well, they're not playing, so therefore they're assets, so we must sell them. I think we have to start acting in a responsible way and go, these players have been bedded in, and now that they're bedded in, we build on top of that. We start building Barry up as a footballer and as a get him stronger. Tyler Dibble exactly the same. Asnu will have had a year. They, as players, they mightn't like it. They mightn't like the fact that they're not playing football. And listen, there'll be a lot of people out there saying they've got to play, they're not going to improve. I totally get that. But for David Moyes, he doesn't look at it like that as a manager. And then you'll get loads of people going, well, we need to change the manager. Well, let's calm down on that a little bit, because we've seen what happens when clubs decide that, the grass is the grass is greener.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work out like that. You've got to get your club to a level, especially with the Premier League. The Premier League is so reactive, and you can see look like Forest and West Ham a couple of seasons ago winning a European trophy. Forest were nearly getting into the Champions League this time last year. They were fighting for the Champions League place. Now they're fighting to stay in the Premier League. There's not a lot between those teams who are at the bottom. You know, you look at West Ham, Forest, and Spurs and Leeds at the moment. They're all trying to get away from that spot. They're all on similar points. You've got to manage it correctly. And I think we've these young players. I think don't look at this year as a failure for those players.
No.
Look at this year as a building exercise for the next step. And look at like players you go to like Manchester City. They always need a year to bed in.
Sure.
Look at the players like Liverpool have bought this season. 130 odd million for a player who, you know, in someone like Wirtz, German international, plays well in the odd game. But they'll see the benefit of that next season. And there's a lot of that in the Premier League where you go, wow, didn't do well this season, but the following season, look at that. He benefited from all that. He's gone away, he's got his head down, knows he has to work harder. And I think that's where we've just got to be. We can question boys, we can question the players, but like there's too much. Like Timur Boonham, I think, is a classic case of like the Newcastle game. You know, I saw comments of like he should never play for Everton, never again. And then three days later, he played against Bournemouth, and he was so good in that game, to the point where he got suspended for the next game, and people were like, "Oh, I can't believe he's been suspended. He played so well." And they are young. James Garner. I've said it myself. I looked at James Garner. I was like, "Is a player who'll never play for a bigger club than Everton Football Club," and yet there was talk of him going to Manchester United or this club and that club. Because at some point he's gone, I've got to start showing up. I'm better than what I'm showing. And it all come together. You know, the light bulb does go on for a lot of players, doesn't it?
I mean, this is something that I get everyone has their opinions and everyone sees things differently, but this is a topic that I think gets spoken about a lot, and it's something that really gets me frustrated. Like, Everton will never be allowed to have nice things. If it's like, if it doesn't work out after a week, it's like, bin it. You know, Tyler Dibling signed, I think it's like a 5-year contract. That 5-year contract doesn't mean he has to be good in the first 7 months of his Everton career. I mean, I just had a look. It's natural for someone who's young to take time. I mean, when I started...
It's a 4-year contract, book.
4 year. Well, still, that doesn't... He didn't sign a 1-year contract, and it's like, you have to be amazing this one. You know, it's long term. It's in the 4 years. And as someone who's, you know, on the younger side, it's like, when I came here, you know, you don't show up the first day and it's like, I'm the boss, I'm going to do everything perfectly. You know, you need to settle in. You need to... It takes time, and people are, I think, too emotional. It's like Thierry...
That is football.
I know, but Everton
football.
Fans and, you know, best fan base ever, right? But like Tierno Barry a month ago was like, 50% conversion rate. No. People saying now he's like too big of an ego. Like, we don't know these... Okay, he's had a controversial and rough time, but like... we're talking about the same guy that 2 months ago was like, you know, he'll finish anything. He dinks the ball over Martinez. I can't remember what game it was, but, you know, he slots it. He threw on goal slot. You know, it's still the same player. And Eric Boonham this weekend was great.
Yeah, played well.
He's outside of the foot, through balls that I'm like, how have you done that? You know, and this is same guy. First game I went to this season, Newcastle, was a disaster. That's the thing with these young players; they need time, and it takes time. If Everton fans want players that are good instantly, let's just go for 27 and above, and go for them kind of players.
I think obviously, I think where we all get caught up emotionally is like the season is. The football clubs and football managers, they break down the seasons into parts. And we were sitting here in October and we were saying that I was worried about young players because most of the signings that we made were young players. And if the manager wasn't prepared to play them, then it was like, well, that's most of your squad.
Yeah.
But what's happened since then is the team has developed its style away from home mostly into a team that actually has improved so much, and it's improved through the likes of Dewsbury Hall, it's improved through James Garner, it's improved. We all had that thing of like the AFCON and how that was we were gonna fall apart during the AFCON. But actually it's those other players, the players that we already have, who've improved, and they've actually allowed or taken away. It's like Dwight McNeil's the greatest example, isn't he? Like, Dwight McNeil's really the best example. This is a player that shouldn't really be an Everton player.
Yeah.
You know, Palace pulled the plug. So he shouldn't really be an Everton player. The manager left him out for the first few games after that happened. But then the manager has realised that the best way to get the most out of Njai was to put him back on the left. And he's looked at the right hand side and gone, well, who can I put out there? Okay, so we put Harrison Armstrong in there. And Harrison Armstrong is a really good young player, but you're asking a really good young player to play out of position. And I don't think he's got the base yet, the actual base like James Garner, of the understanding of football in the Premier League to understand how he can play in that position and get the most out of him. So he's gone back to Dwight McNeil because the simple fact is Dwight McNeil isn't really a winger.
No.
He hasn't got the pace to be a winger. No. But he's not a number 10 either.
No.
Because he's not 2-footed. And I don't think he's quick enough or intelligent enough quite. So he sort of plays in the halfway. But he'll also work back for you.
Yeah.
And it's also the light bulb's gone on. We all watched him in the Leeds game and he was absolutely terrible. Like absolutely terrible. But since not leaving the club and probably realising that this was his last chance to show the manager, or he was going to be sitting on the bench for the rest of the season and then probably sold to someone who's below Everton. Don't forget about anyone else. Our football club is still a massive football club. Like, and I don't mean that just in terms of like, I don't mean that in like because we're Evertonians. Our football club is still a massive football club. You look at the stadium, you look at the fan base, you look at players we're linked with. Okay, we're not in Europe, we're not a Champions League simple. It doesn't mean we're not a big football club. These players will end up going to, if they don't succeed at Everton, to clubs that, no disrespect to them, and some of them have won trophies, but you know, you if you go to a Palace, you know, and I love Palace. I think Palace are a great club, as in like the fan base is amazing, and I think they're always punching above their weight. But you know what? You know that your derbies against Brighton.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, these are nice clubs.
Yeah.
And Brighton's a nice club itself, and that's where you're going to end up. You're going to end up in a Brighton or a Brentford or whoever else, or a Wolves. These clubs aren't anywhere near the level that Everton are and the expectation that comes with playing for a club like Everton. So that's where you're going to end up. And I think McNeil's just gone, right, I need to sort my head out. I need to start putting it in training. And the manager's looked at him and gone, right, this lad can play, certainly in the away games, can play in a position, because it's like, again, it's like that double position. It's like play on the right, drop into the centre, protects the fullback. And if I just work 5% harder, then I will get it. Stop feeling and I don't mean this in the mental health way of saying it, stop feeling sorry for myself.
That the move and stuff.
And just get on with it. Get on with it. And that's what he's done. And he's found himself back in the team.
Yeah.
And he's found himself contributing to Everton's performances. And it's, you know, he's in there. And that's a good lesson to these younger players to, it's not, okay, it's talent, it's mindset, it's handling what comes with being an Everton player. Because, and this brings me back to Barry.
Yeah.
I don't think Barry quite understands Everton Football Club.
No.
I said this yesterday, and lads put like a viral clip of me talking about Duncan Ferguson. I don't think he understands. Because I think when you look from the outside, you might see Everton as a lovely little stepping stone to something else. And I think the same happened with Onana.
Yeah.
Right, so Onana was exactly the same. He comes in and he's a lovely footballer, and I don't know what's going on with his career. I really don't. But Everton fans, there's some clubs out there, right? And it always makes me laugh, but fair play to them, right? You get football clubs who, like, when they sell a player, it's like, thank you for your service. Oh, good luck to you at your new club. We're thrilled for you. Evertonians will fucking riot. And this is, I've had this conversation with other people about, like, Bournemouths and Palaces and these clubs who might, in some seasons, be doing so much better than Everton. And it's a case of going, but the difference is Everton will not let you leave the football club. Like a Palace or, as I said, a Bournemouth or whoever, they seem like there's nothing they can do to stop a player leaving.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like it's almost like natural, and
there's like nothing.
Yeah.
Everton, like, look at like the Brantwaite stuff. A lot of clubs would have just gone last summer. Oh, 80 million. Oh, we've got to. There's no way. We can't stand on them. We can't. Everton are like, here's a new contract. And I'm sure if when they come in for Njai will be offered a new contract.
Yeah.
And it'll be, you know, Everton will do everything in their power to keep Pickford every time. It's like, here's a new contract. John Stones. We wouldn't let John Stones go without a fight. Ross, this is a football club that still fights to keep the best players, no matter what anyone thinks. I know people go, you're a selling club. Lukaku, we put a contract in front of. Richarlison. We've done it with everyone. Yeah. Whereas other clubs, I think, would go,
for sure, yeah.
Oh, we've got to. We've got to.
Yeah.
So I think that's on Barry now. I think that's on Barry to understand. And whatever's happened at the weekend, we don't truly know. We don't truly know, and it's really difficult to talk about it. But I hope he sort of sees that himself.
I think he'll realise the amount of noise, and like the amount of noise, like he wouldn't get that at no offence, but like a Crystal Palace and Brighton. I think, you know, how many people are talking about this and how many people actually support Everton and how big the fan base is. But but this goes back to Barry. I completely agree, hasn't really gotten Everton yet, but that might click at some point. You know, that goes same. That's the same as in talking about development. It takes time, you know. And I hope this, what happened at the weekend. Look, it might have just been a mistake. Barry wanted his friends to come watch his game. The friends were a bit foolish, whatever. Say that's how it happened. Hopefully he learns from it and he does realise, like, okay, he opens his eyes to, you know, what kind of club Everton is, and it's not just...
No, I hope it does. I don't want to... I genuinely don't want what happened at the weekend to give Barry an excuse to leave Everton Football Club. I want Barry, whatever happened, I want Barry to roll up his sleeves and go, I'm going to fight. Because the dead obvious thing and the dead easy thing for Barry to do now would be to go
sulk and...
I'm sulking. What's gone on is out of hand. And Barry doesn't truly know what's gone on.
No.
he will, and I don't know. Only a handful of people will truly know what's going on Saturday. And will we ever get to the bottom of it? No, probably not. But what has to happen? But what's going to happen is Everton fans will be Everton fans. The Everton fans who are in the away end aren't going to stop being Everton fans. So, how much does Barry want it? Right? How much does Barry want to be an Everton player? And how much do Everton believe in Barry? So, I really hope this week. Barry is silly for what he did, putting a message out,
and
he should have,
and putting the video out as well.
He should have left it alone.
Yeah,
he should have. He's emotional, but he should have left it alone. Should have spoke to people at the club, got some guidance, and left it alone till maybe later in the week, and then because Everton will not be happy with how he's added fuel to the fire. Because that's, from a PR point of view, that's the last thing you want. That's the last thing you want is to put that fire on it and make everyone aware.
Yeah. You want to keep it quiet, you know, and he's just. But I think. See, it's tough. Well, he made a mistake, you know, but that's just going back to something you said, you know, earlier in terms of like Everton's a big club and pressure. I mean, that just makes me think even more that Dibbling should be given time. And I'm a fan, and I think he'll do well. But we saw at the weekend, it was Burnley game. He came on. And he just looked to like, okay, I have to impress. And I don't know. I don't understand why it's so complicated for Everton and all these young players. Like, other clubs seem to handle everything so easy. And I just think it's because people are too reactionary. And
you talking about fans, you talking about the club?
Talking about fans. Because I think fans... I don't mind. Hold on. I think it's. I'm really happy that Dibbling. Of course, you want them to play. I'm really happy that Dibbling can be given time, and I'm not bothered one bit that he doesn't play. One bit. Yeah. I think I want to see him play, but if he's not ready, he's not ready. And I'm happy Everton had Grealish, Ndiaye, these players that can take the pressure off, rather than Dibbling, who's probably maybe not ready for a club the size of Everton to play and drown.
I'll be honest. I just think that players get better by not playing.
Yeah.
So, but when Tyler Dibbling's not getting a sniff and when Asnu's not getting a sniff, you just stop. You stop talking about them. So no one's talking about Tyler Dibbling playing or Asnu playing because they're not getting a chance. So there's no one. How can you rate them if they're not getting a chance? If Moyes is not playing them, he's not playing them. It's as simple as that. Do Everton fans want to be going for Europe, or do Everton fans want these players to be playing week in and week out
and be a development club,
being developed? Because I've had this right when I hear people talking about like Bournemouth and Brighton and these other clubs who do really well with young players.
Look where they are in the table.
What's the end game for those clubs?
Yeah, exactly. It's the exact same with
what are Bournemouth doing? Bournemouth, right? So this is Bournemouth, right? Bournemouth buy these young players, right? Okay, I totally get that, and it's brilliant. They play them, right? They don't go anywhere. They don't get into Europe, and then they sell them for 50 million quid to Real Madrid, and then they start the cycle again. But where are Bournemouth going? Yeah. They're going nowhere.
The trajectory is this.
They're there. They're going to be 8th to 13th. They're going nowhere as a football club. They are just like that. And it's bosh. That's bosh for Bournemouth. That is brilliant. But for us, let's be honest, right? If we'd had all these players playing all season, where would they be now? Where would we be? Would we be sitting here? Would we be sitting here going, we're still looking over our shoulder, but it's bossed because Tyler Dibbling's playing? That's the question you got to ask yourself, isn't it? With young players, is that we all want young players to develop,
Yeah.
but sometimes players develop in a different way, and it's not always playing. Remember when the Phil Foden shouts when he signed a new contract, and people were like, "Oh, well done for you've signed a contract to sit on the bench for the next 5 years," and they wouldn't stick him on loan, but he wasn't playing, and everyone was like, wasting this talent, and it was like, no, we're not wasting the talent. He's playing with the world's best players.
Yeah, training
every single day, and when he's ready, he'll be ready, and he'll be playing for us. And it's just
like
it's and don't get me wrong, our players aren't training with them, and I fully understand there are frustrations. There's times players could have went and played like, but there is like you've got it. There is differences, and I think let's get. I think for the young players, the beginning of next pre-season is massive for them. That's when they've got to go, this is at my season. This is my season to shine.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And I mean, I think everything you said is correct. And I like, with players like Dibbling, as you said, that they've had 6 months, more or less, of playing with Premier League level players, developing in that way. And look, I never so when Dibbling signed, right, or when the season started, I'm like, I never expected him to play. We had Ndiaye and we had Grealish.
I expected him to play
more
when the AFCON started, but
yeah, fair enough. But that's when we didn't have Ndiaye, and then okay, who comes next? But I think it's just he's 20 years old. Like he's it's not like he's 26 and you're like, he's still developing, and I just think it's just
to be a bit more patient, but also like, don't get me wrong, Barry's been put into a terrible situation in terms of like, and I've said this from day one, the fact that the only other striker at the club was better was always going to make it very difficult for him, because he was going to play. He was going to play and he was going to develop. And I think what's actually really interesting about this whole conversation is you can take Beto and you can separate him from all those young players. And you can look at Beto and go, look at him. You're watching him develop in real time in front of your eyes, and we're not happy. That's the point, isn't it?
Exactly.
Is that we're watching him make all the mistakes.
Yeah.
We're watching him come on in games and go, what's this? Now, if you added an Asnu and a Dibbling, and let's say one other player doing exactly the same, that's a quarter of your team is going to be like that in every game, and the manager simply refuses to have that. So Barry is the outlier because he plays most weeks either from the start or off the bench. But as I've said from day one, and this has always been my argument, is there should have been somebody else with Beto to make it with Barry to make it easier for him, so that it wasn't Beto and Barry. So that it was like, and this was always my argument for keeping Dom. And okay, that's fine, but we should have got somebody else who helped bring Barry along.
And that's exactly what Dibbling has. Dibbling has those players in front of him, Grealish, Ndiaye, that can. If Dibbling were playing every game, it might be a Barry situation. And Dibbling has that. You were saying, if Barry had that player in front of him to take the pressure off, that lets Barry just develop and stuff. That's exactly what Tyler Dibbling has. And for some reason, people think we have the next Messi sat on the bench. And it's like, no, he's probably in the same situation as Barry, where he's not quite ready or he's not quite at it. And he has players in front of him that can take the pressure and just let him. I thought to myself at the beginning, just let him get ready for the end of that 4-year contract when you hopefully see the.
It's but what we do need is just like going back to the original stuff, is we do need a centre forward who understands a little bit like the job straight away.
Would you?
Because I think if you've got like a 22-year-old centre forward, then the other centre forward should be like 27, should be around Beto's age, but has to be someone who's like understands this league. And the problem with the Premier League now is that you really have to buy it from the Premier League. And we've seen that with like Dewsbury Hall. You have to buy from the Premier League to have Premier League quality, because it's so hard, because everyone needs a year better than you, unless they're exceptional. And then you're paying 70, 80 million pound, like a Katiki and people like that. But because there's such a dearth of strikers now, you can't find those Premier League strikers. So obviously we've been linked with, like, say, Liam Delap, who's had 2 seasons in the Premier League. And even with him, you're like, there's loads of question marks about him. He doesn't score lots of goals, but he is quite bullish. He is the kind of striker that David Moyes would really want. But even with him, would Chelsea let him go? And if they did, it would probably be about 40 million. So you're paying over the odds for a player who doesn't score that many goals, and people are looking from the outside going, he's not good enough for us. But that's what I'm saying. If you want to buy a striker, you know, let's say you went to Bournemouth and said, we'd like Evan Nielsen. They'd want 50, 60 million pound for him, because he scored, you know, I don't know, 20 plus goals in 2 seasons. You know, if we went to Brentford and tried to get the kid they've got,
Kevin Schade?
No, the other one, the lad who plays for fun for him, scores all the goals. He would be he would cost Tudor. He'd Thiago, sorry. Yeah. He'd cost a forward, wouldn't he? He'd cost a fortune. They want 70 million for him. Yeah. Like, he'd be the one. If you were, let's be honest, right? If Everton were really serious, really serious, they'd go and, at 24-year-old, I go Thiago, he would be the player you'd go and get. He's 24, 25 in the summer. If Everton were genuinely serious, he'd be the player you'd go and try and get. But he would cost you 60 million quid.
For me, he's just still another player that's big, bulky.
But he's scoring goals.
He's scoring goals for a team that plays a different
but that's what I'm
style
saying.
Of play.
But then you have to change that goes back to what I said originally. Okay, you have to play the way a centre forward. Yeah. You have to play to his style.
But then I'll ask you this question, right? You were talking about
19 goals this season.
10 of them were like penalties.
I don't give a monkeys. People always say that. It doesn't matter. It says he might have won the penalties. Yeah. That's the point. There's too much of this thing of, like, you've just said it yourself. It's, what if the way they play has allowed them to win more penalties? Yeah. That's that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah. But I'll ask you this. Richarlison, yes or no?
Well, yeah, I would.
Because I see the upside of he gets Everton. He's that link-up player that I was going on about before. A player that isn't just this statue up top to hold up players, and then, you know, he's got that other stuff. But then you're not. He's end-20s, and you're not.
But why would you go and get someone like Thiago who's 2 years younger?
I'm not paying 70 million.
Well, I'm not being funny, right? If you're not paying 70 million for a player who could score 25 goals in the Premier League this season, then there's no point having this discussion, because that's where we are. That is exactly where we are. Do you know what I mean?
You could.
But that's the point. You could go and get Liam Delap and pay 40 million for him, and he might get 8 goals. If you go and get him and he scores 15 goals and you've paid an extra 30 million, that's just what... problem is, that's where football is right now.
Igor Thiago is, in my opinion, he's a very good footballer. You don't score the amount of goals that he has and you're not very good. He's a very good footballer. But for me, I kind of see, if Everton were to sign Thiago, I kind of see that as a Dominic Solanke to Spurs situation. Yeah, but Solanke was a 20-goal a season striker.
The difference is, though, he's massively injury prone, and that's the problem, isn't it?
Thiago is out for a whole year.
What I'm saying is, and I'm not arguing with you, by the way. I'm just saying that now in football, if you want to buy a player, see, Brentford have already bedded him in. Yeah. So he's had 2 seasons. I know his first season he done his leg, so he was out for most of it. But he's been bedded in at that football club. So what's his ceiling? Now, someone like a Newcastle will probably come calling for him soon, or an Aston Villa even, follow that path. The problem is, when you're talking about centre forwards, you need to buy if you don't want that first year to be just a year of what, like we're seeing with Barry, you've got to buy a Premier League centre forward, and there just ain't that many about. They're already either playing for the top sides, and if you really want those, look at Liam Delap. Liam Delap, perfect. played for Ipswich, scored goals, had a £30 million buyout clause, and Chelsea come calling for him because they knew they would never lose money on him. And that is the problem, isn't it? That is exactly the problem. So you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about you're taking a risk. But the problem is now, you've got this situation where you either buy someone like him or you buy a Barry. And the Barry you pay 35 million for, and you know that first year, because the level of the Premier League now, physically, not just anything else, but it's physically so tough for players now. And you talk about Diblin, that's why we paid so. Diblin had a season in the Premier League, that's why he was so expensive, because he'd already, Southampton were like, he's already a year in the Premier League. You shouldn't have to bed this lad in. Now, we've had to bed him in.
Yeah.
But that's the problem, isn't it now? It's like, you're wasting a year of their contract.
I don't agree with the example you gave in Igor Thiago, but I 100% agree with what you're saying. And I think if Everton fans need to either accept going for someone in the £30 million pool and him needing developing, or the ready player,
Would you not think Thiago's a ready player?
No, he's definitely a ready player.
So why isn't he ready for us?
He's definitely, he could he's ready, and he would do well for Everton. I just watch when Everton play. But isn't that on us then to change? If we're going to buy a player who's going to score goals, then why didn't we do that to Beto?
Because he's not good enough. He's shite.
How do you know?
He's not good enough. No, but he's not though, is he? Oh, come on, mate. I can judge a player by their first touch, and he hasn't got one. You can't change your team, can you? To accommodate one player.
We're not doing him
not very good.
Any favours.
But he's not, mate. I have watched football for 40 years, mate.
Yeah.
I know what a good player looks like. And Beto is not a technically good.
Are we talking about Beto or Barry?
You said Beto.
I meant Barry. No, Beto.
But so what's Barry's style?
Barry's style
What's his style?
Barry, he is a... You play it into him, he'll lay it off.
But he doesn't. We do that all the time.
Because we play the ball into him, we're waiting 10 years for players to get close.
I've watched enough of Barry as well to know that you can put the ball into him, and whether you're going to get it back or not is a 50-50 toss-up, right? The only thing I would suggest we do more of is put crosses in for him.
That'd be a start.
But that's it. But
that'd be a start.
I'm looking at the top goal scorers in the Premier League. Haaland, right? Okay. Igor Thiago, second. Who's the third top goal scorer in the Premier League?
Haven't got a clue.
Used to play for Bournemouth.
Semenyo.
Yes. So he's got 15 goals. Thiago's got 19 goals. If you're going to buy a player this summer, he would be the number one. But he would also be the number one for Villa. He'll also be the number one for Newcastle. He'll also be the number one for who knows else. But my point, look at João Pedro, 14 goals. Watford, Palace.
No, Brighton.
Brighton, sorry.
Yeah, and then
Chelsea.
Yep.
Like, this is what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with you, but
no, you can.
These are the players. If you're going to buy players, you're going to buy a centre forward, you're better looking at the Premier League. And if you're looking at someone, like, don't get me wrong, Thiago might be a fluke. He might be I don't watch him every week. He might be a fluke. Might be a fluke season, mightn't he? For all I know. But if you decide that that's the player that's going to take you forward, I agree with you. You have to change your style. You got
to see the whole thing, right? He plays for Brentford. Brentford are all about data and percentages and data science and all of that. Yeah. You're talking about Thiago, like Johan Wissa scored 20 plus goals last season for the exact same team. He was the Igor Thiago of last season.
Yeah.
Playing for Newcastle.
But he's a good player. Just Newcastle aren't using him right, and he's just not hit the ground running.
But that's not playing him right. Is the way I'm talking about
20,
Barry.
He's also 20. He's also 29. Like it's just different.
Everton might play Thiago. Brentford are great at, like, they have a manager, they have a system, it's such a well run, and their strategy is great. Wissa went to Newcastle.
Yeah.
It's not worked out.
But
Thiago could go to Everton and it'd be the exact same thing.
But the problem is that you can buy any player and it mightn't work out. That's it. So the problem you've got is you either do what we've done this summer and buy someone who is raw and you're gonna have to drip them in, or you go and buy someone who's not quite the finished article but is on their way, and you've let somebody else do the hard work for you. And that's what I'm saying about. Look at, like, Villa bought, Villa bought those players. Ivan Toney, when he was at Brentford, I'm sure these discussions were had when Villa were buying the other kid from Middlesbrough. These things happen. You're gonna have to take a risk, aren't you, at some point?
But then, what about, and James will be happy about this, Osimhen?
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
What makes you think that can and Thiago,
Because
as you said,
There's one place for a big club in Turkey where he'll be on massive wages and is attracting other Champions League, and one place for Brentford. And his next step up would be an Everton, if we were saying Europe. But that's what I'm not saying we should sign him. What I'm saying is, if you're going to look round the Premier League and you're going to have if you want a ready-made player, is it not worth paying, say, the extra £20 million for a player who's ready to go from day one in the Premier League?
Yeah.
And having a kid that is going to take time and frustrate you over a year or maybe 2 years. And that's the trade-off. You're not buying. No, you're not. I'm telling you right now, if Everton buy someone for 35 million or 40 million, they are not buying someone who's going to be ready for the Premier League. It's just not happening.
I disagree. I think there's so many.
There's not, mate. There's not
so many players out there.
There's just not. They will all take a year to bed in. Other positions, I completely agree.
Yeah.
But centre forward wise, I don't agree. Catches at 5 o'clock on the Toffee TV Premier. Sorry to cut it short, but I've got to go. See you later.